Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to get the chance to speak at the Q2B conference. I've had a wonderful time speaking with many of you individually, and I'm glad we get the chance to fully go through our pitch. But today we're going to talk about transforming the quantum industry through responsible innovation. As the introducer said, my name is Joan. I'm the CEO of the Quantum Ethics Project, and I also work in education and workforce development for QSense.
Hi, and I'm Rodrigo, and I'm a co-founder and research lead at the Quantum Ethics Project. So first I wanna ask, although I don't see your hands, who saw the movie Oppenheimer this year? Yeah, a lot of us saw it, right? And in the last scene, Oppenheimer is talking to Einstein, and he tells Einstein that he thought it was going to be the atomic bomb, the explosion of the atomic bomb that was going to set up a chain reaction that could destroy the world, but that in fact it may not have been the explosion itself, but the development of the bomb. And so for us, as we are in the early development of quantum computing and quantum technologies, we should be asking what is going to be the chain reaction of us delivering these technologies. In her book, The Ethics of Invention, Professor Sheila Jasanoff, who is a scholar sitting at the intersection of ethics, technology, and law, poses that once a technology is emerging, we, the inventors, are ethical and societal and political actors making decisions of values. And as such, we should be anticipating the consequences that may come with the delivery of this technology. This year was particularly interesting because in November of last year, ChatGPT came out, and this year was a year where we reckoned with what happens when a technology comes into being in a world where there is no significant guide rails for technologies. For example, with these large language models, there was a protest this year from writers challenging corporations that want to phase them out as they're turning to ChatGPT for creative endeavors. Technologies are also environmentally impactful, and they don't impact everybody in the same way. They impact people in the global south or vulnerable communities the most. So for us, responsible computing is a process through which innovators and social actors interact with each other in order to produce socially acceptable quantum applications and products that not only care about technological advances, but also about the environment, vulnerable communities, and workers' rights. When we see a picture of a quantum computer like this, we want to think about what are the resources that we need in order to make these things work. And if those resources are being extracted in some bad way, or if they're vulnerable to geopolitical tensions like helium-3 during the beginning of the war in Ukraine. We also want to be thinking about people. Who are the people who are welcomed into the space to make these technologies happen? Who is making decisions? And how we need to engage with other communities because this technologies will eventually impact them. So quantum technologies, you've heard this pitch, promises to transform many industries: drug discovery, optimization, sensing, communication. What we're asking today is, are we prepared to deal with new toxins, greater wealth inequality, increased cyber attacks, and more misinformation? Now, this is an age-old question. We have asked this question many, many times of other technologies, and so in some ways, quantum is inherent in some of the similar questions. But in some other ways, there's also key challenges to quantum. Particularly right now, as we are in the early stages of this market, we should be thinking about how do we raise awareness and funding for this, for our efforts, while also remaining credible. Quantum computers also promise to have impacts in cybersecurity, and so how do we weigh that with demands for privacy? All of quantum technologies are dual use, so how do we institute ourselves in a way that we make sure that the applications that we have for these technologies are ones that are socially beneficial and not harmful?
And just to connect this back to a point Rodrigo made a few moments ago with the dual use, when we're talking about developing simulations of new materials, possibly for the purpose of drug discovery, in the right hands, that's an amazing thing. And in other hands, discovering a new drug is not technically much different than discovering a new toxin. That's what we mean by dual use, is a technology whose positive or negative impacts is highly context dependent.
There's also issues of sustainability. in our modern times, we have to be careful about not welcoming new technologies that exacerbate the ongoing climate crisis. And how do we provide access to everybody, regardless of the geopolitical tensions that may arise and may pose constraints on who is allowed or not allowed to participate in cloud computing?
So this is where I want to hopefully, I think Rodrigo has done a wonderful job of motivating the concerns that I think many of us in the industry share, and to present our nonprofit as committed. Our basic mission is to ensure that quantum benefits everyone and harms no one. But this message didn't start with us. We actually, when I was a master's student at the University of Waterloo, I saw this video that the Quantum Daily put out, where leaders in our industry, whether you have Ilyas Khan from Continuum or Nick Farino or others, these founders are recognizing that down the road we may have our OpenAI moment. We may have our technology create crises where writers or actors, as we saw this year, are fighting for their basic right to be able to provide for their families. And we want to make sure that quantum does better than AI, and that we foresee some of these challenges, and that as companies or research institutes or universities are developing our research, we're doing that in a responsible way. So to get my start, I didn't know much of anything about quantum ethics. When I started, I was a quantum machine learning researcher. So I started having conversations, and by the beginning of this year, the Quantum Ethics Project had grown a community now of over 200 people on our online Discord server, where these are technologists, these are ethicists, these are experts from around the world who are united in our values that we want to foster an ethical quantum revolution. We've had an amazing time getting the chance to put our message out there, whether you're interested in podcasts with the superposition guy, Quera is right here. They're doing great work. The Institute for Quantum Computing and Quantum Today or DeadCat LiveCat. We're trying to create spaces where these conversations can be had in the public space and in the private community that we've grown. And we want to work with companies who are here. And I'll apologize about the text. I think there's a little bit something lost in translation. They look better on my version. But the two core things we do, kind of activities that we are looking to partner. The first is looking at the long-term growth of our industry and making sure that we are developing an ethical and diverse workforce, people who can think about the development of new technologies and also think about their societal impact. And we are pioneering resources in-house that I don't think anybody has in order to do just this. And I'll speak a little bit about what we've concretely done in a moment. The second piece of what we want to do, and this is one of our main collaborations with the Center for Quantum Networks, is we have the expertise. Rodrigo and I, our value add is that we're both technologists. Our expertise is in algorithms. But at the same time, with whether it's Rodrigo through the Harvard STS program or whether it's myself through my own work, we also have the expertise to think about the humanities issues to be able to discuss both responsible innovation and quantum technology in one place. So who have we worked with so far? Well, as I mentioned, I got my start at the Institute for Quantum Computing. They were our first sponsor. And this year, I delivered 2 sections at the Quantum Computing Summer School for high schoolers. So these are some of the best and brightest from around the world. And I got to have a wonderful and substantive conversation, a little bit of a debate with these students about the responsible development of quantum. And what I'm finding is that if you're an enterprise trying to hire the best talent, the new generation wants to feel that they are going to do work that betters the world and that does not contribute to the long laundry list of crises that we have to worry about on our doom scrolling. Next, we worked with the Perimeter Institute, and we delivered a quantum ethics lecture to master's level students and had a very substantive discussion. And I gotta say, these students are some really inspiring speakers and were really engaged with the ideas and context that we were giving them. And again, this is just that point of saying that if you're trying to recruit diverse people to your team, being able to show yourself as a place where conversations around the intersection of technology and social issues might be that way that you retain those diverse workers. And finally, our largest collaboration is with the Center for Quantum Networks. So we have 2 projects with them. The first piece, which I might, if somebody in the audience wants to ask around the training of a new generation of quantum ethicists, I'd love to say, but we're going to focus mostly on this piece on the right. We're doing a responsible quantum internet project with the Center for Quantum Networks. And this is so significant that I want to take a moment to give you all a little bit of a history of who the CQN are and what they're about. So the Center for Quantum Networks is essentially just a bunch of universities in a trench coat. They're an engineering research center funded by the National Science Foundation and based in Arizona, my home state. And the Center for Quantum Networks asked the NSF at the beginning for funding to build quantum network architecture, fault-tolerant repeaters, and quantum memories, the components and subcomponents that are needed for quantum networks and communications. And this is an important piece. The NSF said no. And they said, unless you build in a research thrust that thinks about the societal and ethical implications of the quantum internet, we aren't funding this engineering research center. And this is something that I think you're going to see more of, where this urge to ensure that our work benefits the world ends up impacting the kind of funding that we can get. So that's how the Center for Quantum Networks Thrust 4 came to be. But there's just a catch. You know, CQN Thrust 4 is full of incredible lawyers and policy experts who don't speak a lick of quantum. And when they put a bunch of social scientists in a room with people working on memories and repeaters, they had an issue where the two communities wouldn't mix. And just as a question for the audience, does anybody know the molecule you need to combine oil and water? Somebody say it loud.
So, yeah.
Soap. Or us, the Quantum Ethics Project. So when I said we are bringing that expertise where we can speak both languages, technical and humanities, this is what I'm talking about. And the Responsible Quantum Network Project is precisely us bringing this expertise to the CQN to create 3 impactful responsible quantum research projects that I want to show for you here. The first one, a student that I'm working with, he's a PhD student, is going to be looking at estimating the energy consumption per kilometer of the quantum internet that they are trying to build. And this is a key piece. This is a basic question that I was shocked hadn't already been asked at the CQN. And what we're finding is that when we incorporate responsible innovation, the opportunity to step back and look at the big picture of what you are trying to accomplish, this responsible innovation work tends to produce projects that are just better technical work. We also have a student who's working on a project that looks at the future of blind quantum computing and what privacy and security implications there might be, and partnering with people who are experts in policy and law to think about that question. And finally, for folks who are really motivated by environmental issues, one student who works on building color centers, which are important for these relays in quantum networks, is looking at the various environmental costs of different processes to manufacture these and trying to produce a kind of a score. Which of these processes are the most environmentally sustainable? And I want to hit this point that responsible innovation, even if, I think the moral argument for why you would want to do this is pretty clear. If you want to take a pragmatic argument and say, well, my #1 priority is building good technology, this is also the way you can do that. Because even in my own research in quantum machine learning, when I decided to step back and think about the hype that was in my field and the overall goals, I ended up having a much easier time securing funding because I was just asking questions that were better aligned with the goals of the industry. So I want to hit this point again, that we are here, kind of showcasing 2 parts of what we want to do to partner with industries with companies here in the quantum industry. But I want to ask, why should you partner with us? I think I've hit this point pretty well, that responsible research is better research. But also, and this is a thing that's come up as we've started to explore some partnerships, potentially in Boston, and certainly our partnership with the CQN. The reason that they saw fit to invest in us and pay for our incorporation as a nonprofit is that partnership with a nonprofit opens up novel funding streams that a for-profit corporation doesn't have access to. And doing projects where we can collaborate and do something that is beneficial for society isn't just good PR, it's good for the bottom line. And finally, we hope that this idea that we are only one node in a larger movement trying to build a more responsible quantum industry is something that inspires you. And we hope that when you think of your own values and the values you want to bring to your work as a technologist or a business person, that you will join us in this movement to build a better quantum industry.
Yeah, so So I just want to hammer down that last point, that we are nothing but a node in this larger movement. And so while we have you all here, and I want to tie it back to the initial slide when I told you that we are all kind of at the driver's seat. If you're an individual who is participating in quantum technology innovation, start building consciousness with those around you. Have the meaningful conversations about what are the social impacts of your work, and then start thinking about how you may attend to those needs. If you are somebody within a research team, incorporate responsible quantum research into your organization. Start asking the questions that may get you to a point where you understand how your research fits into the larger picture, not only technically, but also socially. And if you're a decision maker, please use your expertise to advise your government or your organizations, your institutions to act now. Canada, Australia, the EU, all have responsible research and innovation rhetoric baked into the way that they get and they distribute funding. The United States does not have this, besides the broader impact clauses of NSF. So this year, we already saw what happens when in a country you have research that throughout many years is unregulated, and how once the technology is delivered, going back is really, really hard. Here we have an opportunity to get started early, to do this today and not tomorrow. Work for the benefit of everybody. That's our message. So we saw this call 2 years ago. This is the way that we've responded to this call at the Quantum Ethics Project. All the stuff that we got to talk to you about, also many panels and conferences that we've all been going to that we didn't get to share with you today. And we are really excited to see how you can also start answering this call in a meaningful way. I just want to give a shout out to our funders, the Union of Concerned Scientists, the IQC, PI, and the CQN. Here's our website. Please reach out to us if you want to join the discussion on our Discord. It's a very lively conversation. And also check out our YouTube channel, where we're periodically uploading the videos of the talks and the lectures that we give, so that you can start learning about what we mean with the social impacts of quantum technologies. And thank you so much for your attention. We look forward to partnering with you, but also we look forward to seeing how you take this mission on your own.
And we'll take any questions now. Okay. Now I got to put these blinders up so I can see anybody.
Yeah. Any questions, I can bring the microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you for a valuable insight and talk. I have a quick clarification question. And here is the question. Can you give one example of your research and your values, which has changed somebody's, vision, what they were looking at, and a delta change because of you coming and helping them out on ethics part?
I think you're perfectly well.
I think I can tackle that one. So just to be clear, I understand you. You're asking,
an example.
An example of us coming in and the direction of research changing.
Yes, so because of your incremental impact and the humanities concept. Like, let's say a developing organization is thinking A, and you say, oh, by the way, so it's A delta. And I would like to know the delta change you made.
Yeah, so I can give two quick examples. I think I discussed, none of those projects that I mentioned with the CQN were taking place before our involvement. But I'll give you an example from my own personal research. So my background was in hybrid quantum computing, variational quantum algorithms, and my master's thesis was on the Barren Plateaus training problem. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area, but when I started bringing responsible innovation questions into my own research, I started to think about the larger mission of hybrid quantum computing, which is advantage. It's what everybody, the selling point of that field, and the reason why hybrid quantum computing is plastered all over, maybe 60% of the booths on the floor, is that it is marketed as the one of the most promising applications for near-term quantum advantage. And so when we were throwing the kind of list of core topics that we engage with, and this is maybe not going to click through as quickly as I might like it to. When we had the 5 topics, the first one was hype and credibility. And so I started to think about, is this field really credible in its claim of near-term quantum advantage, or is it overhyped? And how do we quantify such a thing? So this is the project. My students and I have a paper we're going to be publishing in the next few months, where we're trying to get a handle on providing a heuristic benchmark for how far a given algorithm is from advantage, to kind of clarify that discussion around a technology's real capabilities to try and address that question of hype.
I can give another brief example that pertains to the people who are working on quantum chemistry applications. Is that over at Harvard, I've been collaborating with this group that is doing using simulators for quantum chemistry applications. And they were looking at something called meta-organic frameworks, because meta-organic frameworks are really good at capturing CO2 from an environment. And so these technologies have been posed as something that we should be looking into from a quantum computing perspective to improve carbon capture, which has applications for the environment. So one of the, I was invited to participate in their journal club as they were preparing for this research project. And one of the things that I was able to look into was there are meta-organic frameworks which are water stable, and meta-organic frameworks that are not water stable. So if you're thinking about releasing these things out in the environment, you should be wondering about which ones are stable and which ones are not. It turns out that stability is a question that is very well attended within the chemistry and environmental science community, but wasn't a priority in the physics community. So kind of with me kind of going through a interdisciplinary training where I can look at many papers and kind of synthesize them, I approached them and said, hey, have you thought about water stability? And it turns out that they hadn't. So I think that this is now part of their research project as they carry on this. They will be attending to questions of water stability.
Thank you for the question.
Any other question?
Hi, thank you so much both for your talk and your work. I'm curious if you could share a little bit more about, you had a slide that talked about training the next generation of quantum ethicists and just what that entailed.
Thank you. It's almost like I planted the question.
Kind of.
Yeah, so this is actually probably one of my favorite projects that I've ever done. That's our group on the left. So this project is an attempt to address, through workforce development, that oil and water mixing problem that we had with the CQN, where the real problem here is that science students are not being exposed to enough discussions about ethics or societal responsibility or societal impact in general. And so this cohort were primarily physics undergraduates at the University of Waterloo, although we also had participation from students at One Quantum Ghana in Africa, and one student from Germany, one student from here in California. And the program was to give each of these students the opportunity to program and benchmark one of these hybrid quantum algorithms that I mentioned as part of my research around hype, while also taking part in and co-organizing a workshop on the social impact of quantum technologies, which you can find on our YouTube channel. Every student's lecture is recorded. And so what we found is that the goal of this project, and I feel that very proud of what we've been able to achieve, is that I now have, even after the summer, 3 or 4 dedicated students who now have detailed understanding of how to program a near-term quantum algorithm, and who have also written each portion of a white paper that we published at the Center for Quantum Networks on the social impact of those algorithms. And factoring in this question of hype and real-world performance, we don't want to say, oh, this algorithm is going to change the world if it's only performing on 5 qubits, which was often the case. And so we were able to, each student was able to deliver something that I'm very proud of, and collectively I think it serves as a model for what we can do in quantum education going forward to produce the next generation of quantum ethicists.